Welcome, everyone. We're very happy that you're here with us at the 21st Vegan Convergence of the People. I'm Rebecca Allen and honored to introduce to you our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Sailesh Rao. He'll be speaking on making big things happen. And as you know, Dr. Rao is the founder of Climate Healers. He's helping us tackle climate, the biodiversity loss, and environmental crises we face today. Since his journey, he's authored 5 books, produced over a dozen highly acclaimed documentaries, including Cowspiracy, The Sustainability Secret, What the Health, The End of Medicine, Land of Ahimsa, I Could Never Go Vegan, Crispiracy, and I could go on and on. He is a leading advocate for a global transition to a plant-based, compassionate, and sustainable world, a Planet B. Please help me welcome Sailesh Rao, Making Big Change Happen.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Welcome, everyone. Let me begin by honoring the women who have done so much work that I'm depending on, beginning with Donella Meadows, who is probably one of the greatest system scientists of her era. And she's passed on, but she left behind such a wonderful legacy of work. And she looked at systems and understood, how do you make system transformations happen? And she listed 12 leverage points in a system that allows us to change systems. I'm not going to go through all 12 of them, but I want to tell you that the top 3, the most important ones, are the goals of the system. Then it is the paradigm that the system is based on. And finally, it is the power to change paradigms in systems. That is the most powerful lever that we have to change systems. We all know that we need to transition from a climate heating phase to the climate healing phase of our civilization. And the way you know that you have transformed from climate heating to climate healing is that you will begin to see the CO2 levels come down, the temperatures cooling around the earth. You will see biodiversity recovering. You will see the earth getting better year by year. When we see this happening, we know that we have transitioned. Another way to know that we have transitioned is that we are routinely giving more than we are taking from the planet. Then you know that you're in a climate healing phase of our civilization and not in the climate heating phase. So I call the climate healing phase Planet B and the climate heating phase Planet A. So the question is, how do you transform from Planet A to Planet B? First, of course, is the goal of the system. The goal of the system today is extract as much as you can from the planet. It's about growth in extraction and taking more than you give. Because we have created an economic system that's based on capitalism, and capitalism fundamentally, if you do not take more than you give, you are going to go bankrupt eventually. So we are playing a game in which everyone is trying to take more than they give, so they can be above water and survive on the planet. So before we address, what is the goal of a climate healing civilization? The climate healing phase of our civilization, the goal is to restore the planet, is to reduce the temperature on the earth, to reduce the CO2 levels in the atmosphere, reduce the greenhouse gases, other greenhouse gases like methane, and restore the life support systems of the planet. make all of them come towards the green zone. And we haven't even begun to do that. So I started looking into why is it that we haven't even begun to do that? And I looked at the top two leverage points that Donella Meadows had described. The number two leverage point is the paradigm that the system is based on. When you talk about paradigms, these are models and these are axioms. And we basically believe that these things are true. And this is how we lead our lives. So I discovered that 90% of Americans believe that protein is only found in meat and calcium is only found in milk. So this is a paradigm of the climate heating phase of our civilization. So in the book, There is a Planet B, I propose that there are four foundational myths that the climate heating phase is based on. And a myth is a lie wrapped in a truth. So it's partially true, but it has led people to believe things that are not true. It is true, first of all, that protein is found in meat. But protein is found in everything too, in every other food. Protein is found in plants. So we have created a myth that protein is only found in meat. And that's the first foundational myth of Planet A, of the climate heating phase of our civilization. And I was trying to understand, why did we create this myth and how did we create this myth? And the roots go back to colonialism. So during the colonial era, it was very clear that people believe that certain types of people are superior to other types of people. So we had divisions, clear divisions, and we knew it was commonly accepted that Europeans are superior to Asians and so on and so forth. So the Asians were being colonized, and in India, they colonized the colonial rulers engineered 25 famines between 1857 and 1947. And the purpose of the famines were to persuade people to migrate out of India and go to different parts of the world and become indentured laborers. Okay, so this is the purpose of the famines. And as a result, over 60 million Indians died of hunger and hunger-related causes. So hunger has always been used by the industrial titans of the era to persuade people to work in their factories. And so this was routine. It was kind of normal at that time. Children were used as laborers. Hunger was used to persuade people to work. So this was kind of normal during that era. And people thought that this was the way you're supposed to do things. Now, the other woman that I base my work on is Deborah Fries. And Deborah Fries is also a systems scientist, and she claimed that big systems, big living systems, cannot be changed from within. You can only abandon them and start over. Now, I wanted to test that. So I wanted to know whether the current climate heating phase can be tweaked, to turn it into a climate healing phase, and whether she's right that big systems cannot be changed. And this analysis that I did on the protein myth helped me understand why she's right. Because just as during the colonial era, hunger was used to persuade people to work on things that they wouldn't do otherwise. So it would be hard to recruit Indians to migrate and go to West Indies or to Fiji and become laborers in sugarcane fields if they had plenty of food to eat in India. They wouldn't go. So this is why hunger was used to persuade people to migrate. Now, if Deborah Fries is right, we should still be using hunger as a way to persuade people to do things they wouldn't do. And I observed that it is still being done the same way. It's still being done the same way. And currently, over 800 million people go hungry, and over 9 million people die of hunger or hunger-related causes annually. Okay, which is much more than the 60 million people who died over 75 years in India, because that works out to about 750,000 people per year. So now 9 million people are dying of hunger every year. So how is this being engineered? This is not engineered through famines, but it's engineered through the protein myth. So this is why it's very important in the system to convince children that protein is only found in animal foods. And the way it is done is that in science textbooks, they associate protein and meat. Protein and meat. So they're not lying, because protein is found in meat. They just forgot to tell you that protein is also found in all plant foods. But in impressionable minds, like little children, we begin to associate protein and meat, and we begin to think that protein is only found in meat. And this creates the protein myth. And because of the protein myth, people who have money are trying to eat as much meat as they can, because they think it's essential for their survival. And by doing that, they are creating famines at the bottom. Because to raise animals for food, we have to give them, right now we're giving them almost 5 times as much food as we eat. So there are countries where people are growing crops and then exporting the crops to Europe and North America to feed animals while their own people starve. And it's because there is tremendous demand for animal foods in rich countries. So that's the first foundational myth that drives the climate heating phase on planet A. Now, the reason I think it's important that we expose these myths is that then the entire thing dissolves, and you can then start building planet B on the correct foundational truths. The corresponding foundational truth on planet B is that all plant foods have all amino acids and have complete protein. How do we know this? Because there is an entire database of over 11,000 foods, plant foods, measured by the University of Minnesota, and they have listed the proportion of every amino acid that's available in each plant food. And you will discover that there is not a single plant food that does not have all 20 amino acids and therefore have complete protein. Now, the pedagogy on nutrition is also biased towards animal foods. So they rate the quality of the protein in a food based on how fast it can grow muscles. And if that's the way you rate the quality of protein in the food, you'll always find that animal foods are the best protein, because it's basically muscle meat that you're eating. So it has the right proportion. So you're eating an animal, but the animal has roughly the same constituents of muscle as our muscle. So therefore, when we eat animal meat, it's going to be the best at building your own muscle protein. But in reality, it's not just muscles that we need to grow. We need to grow skin cells, we need to grow blood cells, you need to grow all kinds of cells, right? So overall, you need a combination of different kinds of proteins that you need to grow. And therefore, you need to eat a balanced diet. So the best diet for us is a plant-based diet, literally. And Dr. John McDougall has been very, very clear on that in his through his work. So the second foundational myth on planet A is that calcium is only found in dairy foods. And again, it is instilled in impressionable minds in exactly the same way. They keep associating calcium and milk, calcium and milk. And since science teachers are telling you that, children begin to believe that calcium is only found in milk. And the corresponding truth on planet B is that if you eat enough calories on a natural diet, you will get enough calcium. This is a statement that Dr. McDougall has made. Now that is one of the, it's probably a more important foundational myth on planet A, because dairy is the foundation of animal agriculture. Without dairy, the entire industry falls apart. This is why people go to great lengths to persuade children to drink milk in schools. Because when you consume dairy, you're paying for the upkeep of the cow on a daily basis. So that when the cow is finished giving milk, she's all paid for and she can get chopped up and turned into cheap hamburgers. So without dairy, there is no cheap meat. Similarly, without eggs, there is no chicken nuggets. So dairy and eggs, ethical vegetarianism is used to funnel resources for the fast food industry. And without ethical vegetarians continuing to consume dairy and eggs, the entire system falls apart. This is why milk is so foundational. So they persuade children to drink milk, and they give cheese to everybody so that because it's very addictive and people get addicted to it. So literally, I see us being farmed by, in my opinion, one big corporation is farming all of us, starting with the children. And we as parents are rendered powerless because we also believe in the same myths. Okay? So this is why it's very important for us to overcome those myths and to understand the truths so that we can then help our children get out of this addiction. The third foundational myth on planet A is that human well-being necessitates endless economic growth. And this is a myth that it's very important on planet A to instill in people's minds because they're running a Ponzi scheme. And if you stop buying things, if you stop being a compliant consumer, the entire system falls apart because there is no more the Ponzi scheme, which has to depend on growth. If the Ponzi scheme stops growing, people start taking their money out. They start losing faith in the system. When they start losing faith in the system, the entire thing collapses. Ultimately, we have the power to hold up the system on planet A and to build a system on planet B. So the corresponding truth on planet B is that human well-being necessitates a sense of purpose that's larger than ourselves. Okay? Finally, the fourth foundational myth, which I watched them create this myth because I was there right almost from the beginning, is that fossil fuel use is the leading cause of climate change. And it's very important that they created this myth, because without that myth, the entire thing would have fallen apart right away. Because in reality, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And stopping fossil fuel use now is suicidal. That's the truth, corresponding truth on planet B. I watched them create this myth because right at the beginning, when I was being trained by Vice President Al Gore in the second batch that he trained, I asked him the question, if we just restore forests on the land that we are currently using for grazing animals, can we not reverse climate change? And I'm just an engineer, and I was just doing back-of-the-envelope calculations. I was looking at how much carbon is stored on land, roughly 3 times as much carbon as in the entire atmosphere. And 1/3 of the land had hardly any carbon because it was being used as grazing land. This was back in 2006. So I said, well, the rest of the land seems to have a lot more carbon. So if we just restore forests on this grazing land, can we not reverse this? And he turned to Roy Neal, as chief of staff, and he said, how did this guy get in here? And he didn't answer my question. So then I spent the next 4 to 5 years trying to convince him to address this in the presentations, in the training that he was doing to people. Because I feel like you don't want to train people with lies and have them go spread the lies, right? So I was trying to convince him, and I finally gave up. Okay? But by the time I'd already started Climate Healers, and we were focusing on this, on trying to get the truth out. The truth is, the reason they were trying to do that for climate change alone was because there were multiple problems in the planet. There is biodiversity loss, there is desertification, there is ocean dead zones, there are all kinds of other problems. Okay? There are 6 planetary boundaries that we have violated. And if you try to see what is causing all of these planetary boundary violations, you will see that animal agriculture is one of the main culprits. So they were framing it in the media as just a climate change problem. And they were ignoring all the other problems. And within climate change, they were trying to frame it as a fossil fuel issue. Again, it's a partial truth. Fossil fuels do cause greenhouse gases to go up into the atmosphere. But they also cause cooling gases like sulfur dioxide to go into the atmosphere. So Jared Bishop just wrote a paper that got published in last month showing that between 1750 and 2020, if you look at all the gases that we have added to the atmosphere that's causing the climate to change, and you apportion it to different sectors, you will notice that the fossil fuel sector has only caused 18% of the warming that we are experiencing. 53% of the warming is coming from animal agriculture. 7% is coming from other agriculture. And like 10% is coming from forestry. 5% is coming from industries. And certain percentage, small percentage is coming from waste and other sources. Okay? So animal agriculture is the leading cause of the heating that we are seeing. The only way they could frame fossil fuels as the leading cause is by ignoring all of the cooling emissions. So as if saying, don't look at that, just look at this. This is exactly what they did with the protein myth and the calcium myth. Just look at the fact that meat has protein. Don't look at the fact that plants also have protein. Look at the fact that milk has calcium, but don't look at the fact that lots of plants have calcium too. So by ignoring that, they create a myth. So it's engineered. Okay, these myths are engineered on Planet A. Planet A, I see the big tussle is happening between corporations and children. There's always been that way. Corporations initially wanted to use children as laborers. Child labor was common in the 19th century. And then they passed laws against this. But now, I believe there are more children being employed in corporations than ever before. But it's all under the radar. This is why I believe Deborah Fries is right. Big systems cannot be changed from within. You can only abandon them and start over. Okay? So Deborah Fries, so we subscribe to her theory of change. It's called the two loops theory of change. In the two loops theory of change, there is the current system that's reaching its peak and it's now turbulent, it's chaotic because it's reached the limit of what it could do. You cannot heat up anymore the planet. You cannot grow the economy anymore because it's already 70% bigger than what the planet can support. So it's getting difficult. Okay? So you can see all this turbulence and chaos. You see people in the US trying to migrate to Canada because it's going to be warmer there. I mean, it's going to get warmer there, but it'll be too hot in the US. So this is why they're trying to annex Canada, and then they're expecting Greenland to melt, and then they can mine all the minerals there. And all the tariffs are being put in place so that you have a self-contained economy because the rest of the world can go to hell, right? That's the mindset. We are the winners and the rest of them can go to hell. That's planet A. That's the climate hating mindset. We have to transition from that to a planet B mindset in which we believe that all 8 billion people belong on Earth. All 8 billion people belong on Earth. All the animals belong on Earth. And it's our job to bring the wild animals back and to restore the forests and to start cooling the planet and then stabilizing it and maintaining it for the rest of creation possible. So we have been given this opportunity to transform from a climate heating phase to the climate healing phase of our civilization. Our generation has to do this. In fact, we have to do this within the next few years. It's that urgent. So how do you make this happen? Deborah Fries had 4 roles that people play in any major transformation like this. The first is trailblazers. Trailblazers who figure out new ways of doing things, new currency systems in which everyone feels like they belong, new ways of organizing ourselves in cooperatives so that we can build things that last as opposed to planned obsolescence, new ways of restoring forests, new ways of organizing for that. I love going to Sadhana Forest and spending time there, living in a hut where people are there just to restore the original forest that used to be there on that land. And we cook together, we sing together, we play together, we plant trees together, we take care of animals together. So it's one big family that lives there together with a purpose. You wake up every morning with a purpose. So that's trailblazers. And there are so many trailblazers already working on Planet B. This is why what I want to impress upon you is that it's already happening. And we just have to identify it and talk about it and bring it out. So that's the second role that Deborah Fries identified are illuminators. Illuminators are those who tell the story of Planet A transforming to Planet B. How this big change is already happening and why we should be promoting it and providing resources for the people who are working on this. So the third role that people play are the protectors. The protectors are those who have resources in Planet A who are then funneling it to create Planet B. So they're funding it. They are preventing the Planet A from destroying these fledgling efforts. They identify that it is necessary for our future. And the final role is that of hospice workers. Hospice workers are those who help systems on Planet A die out gracefully and transition to systems on Planet B. And when I talk about systems, I'm talking about every system. I'm talking about education system, political system, economic system, everything, transportation system, energy system, everything needs to change. We have to just reimagine it and build it. So I consider this to be a huge infrastructure upgrade project. An infrastructure upgrade project which has to be executed with integrity and honesty. I use the example of the infrastructure upgrade for transportation in 2 cities in India as an example. The Kolkata Metro was commissioned in the 70s by Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. And right from the beginning, it was rife with corruption and cost overruns and delays. And people were using it as a way to make money of the system. And today, there are only 2 lines in the Kolkata Metro that are operational, one going north-south, one going east-west. The east-west does not even touch the north-south. In 1996, Prime Minister Deve Gowda in India commissioned the Delhi Metro. The Delhi Metro, within 6 years, in 2002, had its first trains running. Today, it is as big as the London Underground in terms of extent. And it carries 50% more passengers on a daily basis than the London Underground. And 99.97% of the trains arrive within 1 minute of schedule. And at peak hours, trains run every 2.5 minutes. It is a resounding success. People love the Delhi Metro. Because in Delhi now, you can say, I'm coming at this time. All you have to do is catch the metro and you know exactly when you're going to reach there. Now, the reason it was done, it was executed with such integrity, was because the politicians were getting stuck in traffic in Delhi. And so they decided that they have to do this right, and they said hands off. And they gave the engineers all the power to actually implement it as it should be implemented. And it got done. Today, we have had 30 years of dithering on the climate crisis. 30 COPs, 30 conferences of the parties, and every conference of the party you go there, nothing really gets done. And this is why the climate is getting worse and worse and worse. The environmental situation is getting worse and worse and worse. I consider this to be the Kolkata Metro version of addressing the climate problem. So we need to commission a Delhi Metro version of this, in which we actually want to solve problems. We have to admit that we have been lying to people. So we have to admit that we have been conning children and stop doing that. And we have to now create systems and infrastructure upgrade of every system for Planet B. And that's a project I think we can all get behind. I just released the book, There is a Planet B. I finally got it on Amazon. So here's the book. And the cover of the book has a poem which says, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. And we don't believe anyone who says rapidly phasing down fossil fuel use should be a top priority. Because the reality is we have been misled by the UN IPCC. So don't tell us that we have run out of solutions. On Planet A, we have been reading this from the bottom up. The bottom up says we have run out of solutions. So don't tell us that we have been misled by the UN IPCC. Because the reality is rapidly phasing down fossil fuel use should be a top priority. And we don't believe anyone who says animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. That's the way we've been treating this on Planet A. Now, this book finally got it on Amazon. I had a hard time because the book in the back has a quote from Glenn Mercer, which says, "The world is not such a terrible place as long as you look at it wrong." And that quote is written backwards. And I wanted the book to be published so that you have to open it backwards to read it. Okay. And Amazon refused. So I finally got to the bottom of it and I have turned it around for buying it on Amazon. But as far as if you want to buy the book reversed, we are going to create a facility for you to be able to do that. So you have to order it from Climate Healers. And we'll get a publisher here to print it the right way. Because apparently the machines in Amazon, manufacturing lines in Amazon, are all operated by robots. And they will freak out if the book is printed backwards. So they don't print anything that's printed backwards. So on Amazon, it's going to be this way, but in reality, you can order it from Climate Healers. But we haven't done that yet. So I've been struggling with Amazon for so long. Finally got to a human being, and they resolved it in this manner.